Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of Better Late Than Never, a series where I play old games that I never got around to playing and talk about what we can learn from them today. So I realized that we've been on this big retro kick here for the past string of episodes, between the Nintendo Classics and Genesis hits. So now that we're jumping into the back half of my list, I wanted to bring us back up to modern times. So on this episode, we're starting with our second BioWare game of this series, Mass Effect. Now, considering that I found Knights of the Old Republic to be an outdated slog, I figured I'd have similar thoughts here, but hey, I actually got a lot of good things to say this time. So here are my three biggest takeaways from Mass Effect. Number one, our standards for cinematic games has drastically changed, and okay, I know that I just said that I'd have good things to say, and I will get there, but first I just wanted to kind of touch on something that's kind of funny to me. In my lifetime, I've gotten to see the word cinematic change shapes in gaming so many times. 10 years ago, I can see why you'd use that word to describe Mass Effect. It's a gigantic game with tons of big set pieces and swooping character arcs. But next to today's high-budget, cutscene-dense games, it's almost funny to think that Mass Effect was once the pinnacle of movie-quality storytelling a decade ago. I mean, sure, it does have a really great story, but so much of it is told through these static shots of talking heads. But I think it's another reminder of how even the most modern games can start to feel old, even when it seems like we're reaching this sort of technological plateau. There's so many micro-improvements being made every year in so many different areas, and BioWare's boxcar-edited all-talk style is pretty indicative of that progress to me. And that idea takes us to our next point too, which is that, number two, mechanics can really date games. Just like the cinematic style of Mass Effect shows the game's age, some of its gameplay elements also make it pretty unmistakably 2007. Most notably the cover system. Hey, remember when Gears of War popularized the auto cover system, which then became an integral part of pretty much every third-person shooter for years? Well, that's on full display here in all of its clunky glory. And you know what, it's kind of endearing if I'm being honest. It's the kind of mechanic that has been tweaked and tweaked for a decade now, so Mass Effect almost feels like a time capsule. It's like playing Halo 1 again and seeing the birth of auto health generation. I got to see what this basic function looked like in its earlier inception, again highlighting the progress games have made over the last decade. The cover systems of modern games are snappier and tighter now. And what's funny to me is that those games will probably feel just as clumsy in 10 years. Like, I can't wait to see videos about The Division in 2028, calling out its systems as being classic 2016 gameplay. Like I said, I think there's something genuinely charming in that experience, and that kind of actually brings me to my last point, which is that, number three, it's so satisfying to find great old games. Look, I play a lot of games for the series, and sometimes it's a fun experience, but sometimes I have to drag myself through hours of a game that I can't stand just so I can write about it. But man, it feels so awesome to find an old game that's still just straight up great. As I've been doing this series and coming at so many of these games critically, I started having this cynical thought that games just have an expiration date. And as we've seen, sometimes that's kind of true. But every once in a while you go back and you play an old game that you've never played and it just clicks. Through all of those outdated mechanics, you find an experience that's so immersive and satisfying, and I think those moments are what really legitimize gaming as an art for me. Games aren't just shiny technical spectacles that distract us until the next big thing arrives. At their best, they're memorable experiences that can always transport us away to another world and sometimes teach us a thing or two about our own. I loved spending time in Mass Effect, exploring the planets, making important political decisions, and learning about the different races and conflicts packed into it. I can't wait to continue the series in the same way that I can't wait to dive into the next episode of a good TV show. So, hey, yay, games. You done good. Okay everyone, so we've got a good chunk of games to go, and as always, I kinda need help choosing what's next. So take a look at the list of the games I'm playing through in the description, and let me know what you want to see next in the comments. I guess I have to do a Season 2 of this so I can play Mass Effect 2, huh?